so here to stay. Oh, 'tis now delight for the red and white. Ian, so here to stay.
Cold up here this morning. Really cold. It's almost as cold as it felt walking away from the ground on Saturday afternoon. But then the cold wasn't just on the outside, was it? It was on the inside as well. I think we all felt it. 2 games in a week where you go into it thinking, oh, you know, if we get 3 points from these 2 games, we'll be all right. Got a goal would have been nice, but there we go. We come away from what is almost certainly going to be described as a bad week for Lincoln City, and rightly so. 1 point from 3 games. You know, the Doncaster point we got by virtue of them not being able to score as much as us being able to score. I mean, we've had 3 blank games now. The Shrewsbury second half, which was the other home game, was not good either. So it's been a challenging time, and easy to get caught up in that. Easy to get caught up in the moment. Easy to take 4 games from a season and use that to define the season. And I'm not going to call fans out for their opinions on here. Saw quite a few people, well, I'll say quite a few, a vocal minority, let's say, believing that a change of manager would be appropriate. It wouldn't at all, in any sense of the word, in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. And I really wanted to address that, I think, this morning. Just because it came, I mean, I remember seeing something similar 6 or 7 weeks into Michael's reign, and you know, it was bizarre then, and I find it utterly bizarre now. And look, I'm well known for supporting Lincoln City managers. I didn't want Chris Sutton sacked at the time. I'll be honest, I didn't, because I think if you can see signs or you can feel potential, should never replace a manager. I don't think it does anybody any good at all. I think you get on this merry-go-round where, you know, you're sacking a manager, you're bringing someone in, you're sacking them, you're bringing in. Look at Fleetwood, they've got rid of Simon Grayson. I think they're on a hide into nothing when they brought him in anyway. And okay, maybe Joey Barton was a bit different, but you get on that cycle, and once you get on that cycle, it's very, very hard to get off. When you start judging a manager on 5 or 6 games, or 10 or 15 games, rather than a season or 2, I think it's very, very dangerous. And you know, we often, I think, at Lincoln City in the last couple of years have been on that trajectory. It's always been up, but there's always been a tendency, whenever there's been a slight bump in the road, not to overreact, because fans react how they react. I get that, but there's always been that tendency to wonder. And I think losing 3-0 at home to Colchester on the final day of the title-winning season, and people walked out at half-time, as is their prerogative, kind of think you're missing the big picture. And they go, I know what's garbage and that's garbage. Well, it is, but we're going to be given a League 2 title at the end of the game. So, you know, over 46 games, we've been less garbage than the 23 other teams that we're facing. And I sat watching Saturday's game, and look, I get mad. I'm not going to lie to you. I get upset. I get upset with players who appear to lack effort. I'm sure they don't, but they appear to lack effort. They appear to lack heart. You know, we don't have that Michael Boswick, bang, have that you bastard kind of mentality in our side, and that wasn't a problem last year. But as soon as things don't go well, it is a problem. And you know, there's actually parallels here between us and Gillingham and Steve Evans, as painfully as it sounds, because you know, with Steve Evans' football and personality, when you're winning, it's great, but as soon as things go wrong, it's easy to criticise. It's easy to roll out there. They boot it long. He's a prick. Blah blah blah. Whereas, you know, with Michael, there are subtle differences, but at the same time, when you're playing out from the back and you're being patient and you're going from side to side and you're winning games, people will purr about it, as we did last season. The second that something falls down in that chain, it's easy to say the manager's stubborn. He won't change his mind. We're playing negative football. Not negative football. It's the same football we were playing last season. It wasn't negative football last season when we were beating MK Dons 4-0, or when we were thrashing Burton at home, or when we were able to take advantage of crap teams coming to our ground. And let's not make any mistake. Accrington are not a good side. Not at all. And the only difference between us and Accrington on Saturday was a striker. Sorry, I'm checking around me. They had Colby Bishop, who reacted quicker in one instance. take that goal away. We actually had, I know people will laugh at me, we actually had better XG, with better chances. We were the better side. I mean, it wasn't, that's like saying that you're the richest man of two beggars sat on the street with a tin full of coppers. You're still not a king, but we were the better side on Saturday. Lesser of two evils, of course. The better of the Commodore VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 when compared to a PlayStation 5. We were bad. I'm not hiding away from that. But with better players, we win the game. With the players that we've got out injured at the moment, we win the game. So, I'm not usually prone to overreaction. I did a little bit because it hurt. I hate walking away from Sincilbank disappointed. I hate walking away from Sincilbank with everybody around me disappointed as well. And I think that was a real kicker, was walking away from the ground. Normally I argue with my dad because he's glass half full, I'm glass half full, he's glass half empty. It's always been the case. It's how we react to things. I look for the positives, he looks for the negatives. We come together on a Monday morning and go, oh, well, we were both wrong. But we weren't both wrong. And we weren't on Tuesday. On Tuesday, I argued the point a little bit. I was wrong. Didn't have the fight to argue on Saturday. I had as much fight as some of our midfielders appeared to have. It's easy to get lost in appearances. It's easy to get lost in, well, he was crap because he's misplaced one pass and that's the one you remember, but you forget the 7 or 8 that he's put together before and that actually went well. It's easy to say we didn't have any attacking intent, but we did. Didn't always work, broke down in the final third, didn't have half as much as we could have done, but we did have effort. We would have effort. So there we go. So then people are calling for the manager to go. That's football. It's pantomime, isn't it? It's pantomime. You have a couple of bad results. It's his fault. Then you're not looking at the bigger picture. You never are. It's easy. I wasn't looking at the bigger picture when I came away on Saturday. I wasn't thinking, well, we're transitional. We've got this. We've got that. There are reasons. There are reasons that we're struggling. And it's easy to go, oh, sod those reasons, but because I did that. Stuff those reasons. We're struggling, but that team should have been able to beat Accrington. Yes, it should. Yes, it should. We still weren't as good as we could have been. No, we weren't. We didn't create as much as we should. Correct. They're all correct assumptions. But they're assumptions that are already built on, we've got key players out. And you then get people say, well, they're always injured. I'm not looking for counter arguments. I'm trying to put together a reason why Michael Appleton is the right man for this job. And I shouldn't have to do that because, we saw that last year. We saw it when we got to the championship playoff final, the playoff game to get to the championship. Of course he is. Of course he is. Just because the football, when it doesn't go well, looks bad. And, there's the combination of it not going well and the players. We haven't got the players at the moment to create the chances that we need to create in this start. Why? Tom Hopper's injured. And, everybody's been a critic of Tom Hopper. Let's face it. At some point, everybody's gone, he's not a real striker. If we had a real striker, if we did. Do you see now what he brings? The link-up play. He is to the attack what Liam Bridcut is to the defence. He's the anchor. He pulls those attacking players in. And, he's always there to pick up the ball in midfield. He's always there to help us start again, but he's also there to help us spread from side to side. I think we lack that a little bit. I'm seeing now what Tom does, and I have been a critic of him. I'll hold my hands up. I have. But he's got such good work rate, and we're missing that. We are, and that's no disrespect to Freddie Draper. The boy's 17 years old. He's picked up, I think, your man of the match twice. If I'm not mistaken, looking at the numbers, he's going to be close to player of the month this month for ploughing a lone furrow up front, for actually creating and having chances. He had the header that went just over. He's got no right to win that header, but he has. He's going to be a hell of a player. But he's not the answer to the question now. He's the answer to the question long term. I don't know if there's any NBA fans on here, but when Zach Levine signed for the Timberwolves back in 2015, they signed him with a view to him being a top player. And he is now. He was with the Chicago Bulls last year. But anyway, that's, it's not NBA. So he's potential. So we obviously miss Tom Hopper. we obviously miss Liam Bridcut. Look, that midfield at the moment is dysfunctional. Michael knows it. That's why he's shuffling it around, not shuffling it around as much as some fans would like. This is prerogative. He's the manager. He sees more on a week than we do on a Saturday afternoon. But the midfield is not working. Not one of the players that's played in central midfield has come out with anything like serious credit. And I thought Ted Bishop actually didn't do too badly in the Bridcut role in the first half on Saturday. But he just had nothing ahead of him. It just didn't work. But if you get Bridcut back into that side, and you don't need to play one of the central midfielders out wide on the left, you've then got a choice of any two from Fiorini, McGrandles, Sorensen and Bishop ahead of Bridcut. I think Ted Bishop is an infinitely better player when he's playing in that attacking role, when you can get him on the ball further up the pitch, where his carries are not taking you from your own defensive half into the attacking half, but they're taking you from the centre circle right up to the edge of the penalty area. I think then Ted Bishop's a much better player. And I think he's almost suffering a little bit because of his versatility. He has got a bit of quality on the ball. Let's play him in front of the defence. He can deliver a ball. Let's play him out wide on the left. Whereas actually, his strongest position is in the middle, ahead of Liam Bridcut. So then you pick one of McGrandles, Sorensen, and Fiorini if you have to. And that's, I say that snidely on, just on recent form, because they're all decent footballers. I think Lars Sorensen probably has put a little bit more into his game than the other midfielders over the last couple of games. He puts himself about. He's had a couple of decent chances. He's arrived in the box. Not look like scoring, but I think there's a perception that a player does badly in some games, and it takes an awful lot to kind of erase that. We've seen it with Hacks. Hagiba Delican was very, very good at Cambridge, and he was very, very good against Bradford, but he was woeful against Morecambe. So which game do people remember? They remember Morecambe, and he's been coming on and affecting games. So there's a couple of reasons why, it's not entirely the manager's fault. The injuries certainly haven't helped. And that's without Anthony Scully, who, has been our main goal threat. And again, it's all right saying things like, well, we shouldn't be relying on one player. We got this wrong in the transfer window. That didn't come off for us. Yeah, I get all of that. I get it. Okay, but it's arguments and counter arguments. And I think back to people have likened us now to John Schofield's side of 2006-07, scintillating in the first half of that season, as we were last season, struggled in the second half of that season, as we did a little bit last season, and now off to a bad start this season. It's very, very reflective, subtle differences. First of all, we were the best team in League One in the first 6 months of last season. Under Scully, we were in amongst 3 or 4. We didn't have the complete collapse, and we were able to arrest that slide and get to the playoff final, whereas under Scully, there was probably 3 wins since after the turn of the year, and we were always clearly in decline. And I don't think that was the case last year. I think last year we were struggling with injuries, but we weren't clearly in decline. And I think we proved that by beating Sunderland as we did. And I think this year we're not bottom, as I think we were when it's cold, as we were when Scully left the club. I think we were bottom of the division at the time, and we were absolutely clueless. And it wasn't through injuries. It was just, the strongest team was being put out every week, and we were bad. We were poor. We've been poor recently, but it's not our strongest team because we're ravaged by injury. Yeah, and aside from the odd change here or there, what can Michael do? Those that are looking at him, hang on, there's somebody coming. Charlie, come here. Just have to wait a second. Come here. Come here. Hold on, people. Whoa. You do not get that on the Football League show. You don't. So what changes would he make? I'm what I class myself as a so-called expert. I think I know. I don't. I wing it like everybody else does in the bar. So, okay, you might play Hacks. You might play Max Sanders, but there aren't wholesale changes. Dan and Lundley gets slated when he comes on, so you wouldn't start him over Freddie Draper if you're one of the critics. Freddie Draper's the golden boy. What do you do in defence? The options aren't there. You can point to recruitment, fair enough. You can't keep making that same argument when things get progressively bad or progressively worse, which they have since Doncaster. It's easy to make the same argument. But the point is, I think I can see, and I think everybody will be able to see where the points are that we can develop, where the improvements are. We know in January we'll sign players. Might not be the be all and end all. Might not be that's going to take us into the playoffs, because it's not there. We're not going to make them this season. But I think that we'll sign the sort of quality that will be able to beat teams like Accrington, Doncaster, Crewe, Fleetwood, hopefully Morecambe. Because actually, a lot of the teams that we've played and not got results against, by the way, not got results against, I buy that, I get that. But we've not been that much worse than some of the teams that we've lost to. Morecambe, average. We lost, we were poor, they're an average side. Doncaster, took a point from that, they weren't great. Shrewsbury, 10 men behind the ball, took a point from us, fair enough. Not that great. Normally if you're in a relegation battle, you look and you try and find 4 teams that are worse than you, or 2 teams in League 2 rather. I could tell you 8 teams at least that we've played this season that I feel were not as good as we are, even with the squad that we have now, even with the players that we have now, as long as everybody was fit. We are better on performances that I've seen when we play our best. We're better than Accrington, we're better than Morecambe, we're better than Shrewsbury, we're better than Doncaster, we're better than Cambridge. We were better on the day than Ipswich. We are better than Fleetwood. We haven't seen Crewe, who you would imagine we should be better than. We haven't seen Cheltenham, who fight very hard, but we should have enough to get past. Didn't think we were that much worse than Bolton on the day. It was just a goal that settled the game. Much of a muchness. We're better than Gillingham. So, and I just want to touch upon injuries as well. There's this myth that we sign injured players. Nobody signs injured players. Certainly not en masse. You sign players who have got injury records, but, players can come back from injury and be superb. Neil Eardley, Michael Bostwick, Michael O'Connor was excellent for us and came back. So, we don't particularly sign injured players. We do take, not risks, but make calculated judgments. Tom Hopper had one serious injury before we signed him. Ted Bishop had a bad injury record, but got a full season under his belt. And that's a tough season, by the way, because it was shorter, it was condensed, there was more games in a short space of time. But apparently he's a crock. Chris Maguire, who hadn't had any serious injury problems that I can find looking back through his career, no sort of spells of 6-8 months out or anything like that, nothing. But people are saying he's injury prone because he's picked up an injury in pre-season. Dan Lunderloo picked up an injury in pre-season. How can he be injury prone? He's 21. He's barely been kicking a ball for as long as I've been doing my blog. So I don't buy that we have injury prone players. Yes, Liam Bridcut didn't have a phenomenal record before coming to us, but what would you rather have? No Liam Bridcut, or a player who had got the injury, a perfect injury record, who could get injured at any time, who's not quite as good? Liam Bridcut makes us tick, he makes us purr. He's like the heart of the Lincoln City body. Without him, we're dysfunctional. It doesn't work entirely. With him in, it's different. We lack leaders on Saturday. With Liam Bridcut on the pitch, you don't lack leaders. Don't at all. So there are positives. And that's why it makes it, for me, bizarre that people so quickly are looking beyond the team now for scapegoats. That's the first thing. The first thing when you lose a game, you look for a scapegoat on the pitch. So Hacks has had it. Dan and Lunderloo's had it. Other players will get it as well. And I go back to some of the days in the National League. Matt Reid had it at times. Around me, when I used to sit in the 2016-17 season, around the time we'd lost to Arsenal and we had a couple of tough games. Reid's not good enough. He's not mobile enough. Club legend now. Easy to be a club legend when you've got him, not when you're here. And yeah, there are decisions that the management team have, or when I say the management team, I mean recruitment, everything, have made that fans go, I don't know why they made that. Harry Anderson going, why did they let Harry go? My mate Gav, who sits near me every week, Harry Anderson would do well in this team. It looks like he would. Theo Archibald, how much would we love a player like Theo Archibald to have come on Saturday on the other flank to Hakeem and asked questions both sides? Oh, I would have loved it. But they make these decisions based on seeing the players all day, every day, week in, week out, understanding their strengths and weaknesses. They made them with recruitment in mind that we know didn't go particularly well. So it's easy to criticise from a position of minimal knowledge or of limited knowledge, I think. So I'm just trying to be positive. I think it's going to be difficult through till Christmas. I really do. I don't see how, unless we get Bridgecut and Scully back quickly over the course of this week, I don't see how we make the sort of changes that I think we need to. I'm fearful for this week because we're going to mix and match, but we can't really mix and match. When you think, well, we'll play a weaker team against Carlisle, what constitutes a weaker team against Carlisle? Max Sanders, who everybody wants to start in the league. Hacks, who's come on and done okay in the 2 times he's come on. Dan and Lunderloo up top, meaning that when we go back to league action, we're relying on a 17-year-old again. You know, you can't make huge sweeping changes. And my fear is defeat in either of these games. Win one, lose the other. People are still saying you've lost to a League Two club. Lose both, and it's meltdown by the time we make Crewe. The players would have their confidence whacked because they've lost twice against lower league opposition. The fans will turn quickly, and I really, really hope that doesn't happen. Not just from cup progression point of view, but just purely from a I can't be doing with it point of view. You know, I stayed off social media myself on Saturday night, and I've not really been on my Stacey West Twitter account because I don't want to argue with my friends who feel differently to me. But I will, and that's, you know, you read something, you think that's ridiculous, and you argue back, and you start getting funny. And you know, I know two close friends of mine who are now not talking because they come from different positions, one positivity, one negativity, and they're not talking now. Wow. I remember back in 2001, many moons ago, I was a management trainee at Jackson Building Centres, and I went away on a training weekend with 2 Leicester City fans. Same thing was around the time Peter Taylor was manager. And I remember, they were introduced to each other, and he thought they're going to be a night because they disagreed so much about Leicester. I mean, how do you do that? So I stay away from social media. Anyway, I think that's more or less enough, isn't it? Shall we have a look through some of these comments and see what we've got and who's saying what? So you must bear with me. I'm not going to put all the mornings up. Good morning, Jim Atkin. Morning, Brian Rundle. Connor Pierce, Kev Green, Derek Carlisle. And then something else. Okay. It's not putting any of them up. There we go now. But I am breaking up, as Mr. Barton says. So look, we're going to call it. I'm going to call it a day now.